I think we're good. Yeah, all right. All right. Hey folks, how are we today? This is the next segment of the Next Evolution Athletics online Q&A. So today we have Jill Foreman, and I've been working with Jill for 5 years?
5 at least. Yeah, 5 or 6.
Yeah, and it's been a really fun time, but I'm gonna let Jill give us a little intro on herself. So Jill, who are you? What do you do? All blah, blah, blah.
Perfect. Hi. Thank you for inviting me on. It's always nice to talk with B. I'm an occupational therapist. My background is a kinesiology degree way back when at U of A, and then occupational therapy degree out at McMaster. Over the years, it's brought me to working with kids and their families. And I've got my own private clinic at this point, where I see kids with all different needs. So oftentimes kids are coded for educational learning difficulties, or they've got different diagnoses, but not all. So where I'm mostly supporting parents is almost like a parent coach, helping kids in their struggles. So occupation, meaning their job of being a kid, is typically showing up at school, being able to learn, being able to make friends, being able to get along with folks. So a lot of what I do lately is self-regulation, which is a big fancy term for how we can show up as we want to, as our best, smartest self. And today I was going to chat with you guys about emotional regulation and how that relates to mental health. Yeah, so that's what I do. The other important thing about me is I've got 3 kids. I'm a happy single mom of 3 kids, ages 7, 9, and 11. So right now I'm trying to rock out the homeschooling in the morning, seeing clients virtually in the afternoon, and getting our butts out for a family bike ride or dog walk. That's kind of our days lately.
Yeah, it's been a slight shift for everyone, eh?
Yes, it's been a rather large pivot. But
But have you
yeah.
found that like a lot of how are your clients adapting to the pivot? Like, are the kids like
Oh,
responsive to it, or you know?
it's all over the range. So some of my clients find me privately. Their parents might have been told by a teacher or a psychologist that maybe you could get some help from an OT, an occupational therapist, or a physio or a speech therapist. They might be coming to me for a specific reason, and it might be related to, like, say, paying attention in class, or written output, or social skills, or big emotions. So it depends on why they're seeing me. So some kids, I've got one kid that it's just been brilliant for the teletherapy or the telehealth, but he's older.
Telehealth, I like that.
Yeah, telehealth.
Yeah.
So we're doing Zoom sessions. He's in grade 7. His diagnosis is autism. He would have been referred to back in the old days as having Asperger's, which is gifted intellectually. So very bright kid, slightly quirky due to the autism spectrum. He's in a private school. He's highly academic. Like, he's 4 or 5 grades ahead in mathematics,
Oh wow.
science. He's an amazingly interesting kid. With him, I'm working on social skills and emotional regulation, and executive functioning, which is, we can talk about that a bit more because it's such an important piece for all of us right now. It's that prefrontal cortex, the front brain, the problem solving, decision making, prioritizing.
Emotional.
Yes. So with him, he's really good with technology, and he's really comfortable with technology. He teaches me stuff every time I see him online. So with him, especially with his diagnosis, how he presents, it's actually, social skills wise, it's more comfortable for him on telehealth with me. We've had a relationship established, though. That was really important. I've known this kid for about a year and a half. I've known his parents. So telehealth was almost like a seamless transition, and I could offer more convenient hours and the rest of it for him. I've got the other end of the spectrum, some preschool age kids, say 4 years old. The first thing that happens with their parents is, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this kid to sit still in front of a screen to talk to you for an hour? Well, first of all, we've got to change our expectations. That's not developmentally appropriate for a 4-year-old to sit and talk to someone in a screen for an hour anyhow. So we've had to be creative. How much am I going to do parent coaching? How much am I going to do games? How creative can I get? So I've had to actually think about, okay, how can I intersperse little informational videos in between me talking, in between us playing, like a board game virtually or something. So it just depends on the developmental age and stage of the child and what they're working on. So for a child that's working on fine motor output skills, writing, printing, I can do some cool stuff where I can share my screen. I can show them a typical worksheet. I can write over. We can talk it through. I can give tons of ideas based on the materials they have at home. They can kind of do like a show and share of what they've got, and then we can make a plan. So that's worked well. Other parents have had to ask. Some have government funding, something called the Family Services for Children with Disabilities, FSCD. They get a 6-month block of funding for therapy time. Some of them, they may have developmental disabilities. They may have a lower IQ than, say, their peers. And it's really hard for them to maybe understand and engage in such an abstract way with another human. Yeah. So these would be children in perhaps a special needs classroom that I might be working on self-care skills with. You know, hygiene, toileting, dressing, personal space. They're really things that are hard to do without that one-to-one interaction. So those kids, some of them have been able to press the pause button and not lose the funding. So the parents, it's a lot of work for parents, a lot of hoops to jump through to find their team to get approved. So you don't want to lose the funding and support for those kids. But that government program has surprisingly been quite flexible, where when a parent says, look, I can't manage it, I'm still working full time. This child needs one-to-one support all the time. Can we please extend? And so we press pause. We're hoping for more one-to-one as social distancing rules change. So yeah, I guess that's a long answer saying it depends on the client.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of people are saying. Like, some people have transitioned relatively seamlessly, and then on the other end of the spectrum, it's been I don't know how you could do this any other way.
Yeah. And it's hard because I had that moment even as a mom, right? You all have to look at how much is on your plate. So I'm kind of going, okay, I got to homeschool 3 kids right now. I got to look at after everything else.
Yeah.
Should I be working? It all comes into play. Like, I like to work. I like to be busy. I like to be helpful. Yeah. Economically, that's been a real shitstorm. If you work a little, you can't get any help to pay your rent as a business. If you do shut the doors, you'd be making more. So it's one of those ethical things for me too, where I don't believe in taking the funding if I can work, but at the same time, it's been a bit of a tough haul figuring that all out.
Yeah, it's the definitely forcing creativity on all levels.
Yeah, absolutely. But what do you think, I guess, what would be most helpful be for you and for folks that you're connected with as far as self-regulation, mental health, that kind of stuff? What would be good to share?
Well, I guess the simplest one that we would go with, let's just start with self-regulation. What do you see are the biggest obstacles people are running into right now, and kind of what are some tricks to kind of get around it, or some techniques you could probably use?
Yeah, okay, so self-regulation is basically just finding yourself in that comfortable spot where you can respond to a situation rather than react. So
I believe we talked about that before.
Yeah, we connect on, it's not just weights, we connect on so many different levels. It really goes well with your goal setting and being realistic and figuring out, these are my circumstances and what can I actually do. So self-regulation, there's a visual do you mind if I do a screen share and show you a little visual?
Go ahead.
Okay, let me show you a little screen share here with, here we go. So this little iceberg visual, I use this a ton with clients. So the first thing you see is behaviors communication. Let me just get a little marker here. So if you've got unexpected behavior in the top here, right? This unexpected behavior area means people aren't regulated. So they're showing up like angry, more frustrated than you'd expect them to be. So for ourselves, it might be snapping at a kid, snapping at your partner. You kind of go, what the heck? Where did that come from? So that's unexpected behavior. It might be, we typically call it an overreaction. So you've got the size of the problem and the size of the reaction. And if they don't meet up, like I've got a small problem, I've got a small reaction. If they don't meet up, I've got a small problem, I have a huge reaction. That's where you've got unexpected behavior. So these underneath the iceberg is different areas of self-regulation. So I focus a lot on the emotional area for kids. Often parents come to me and say, like, this kid is so intense, or they have such huge emotions, I just don't know how to help them. So we kind of look at the positive. Okay, kids with big emotions tend to be really sensitive, tend to care deeply. That's the pros. The negatives are, this kid is exhausted and no one wants to hang around him. right? So if they're having an unexpected behavior, is it emotional self-regulation that's off? Biologically, are they not regulated? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Did they not get enough sleep? Do they have to go pee? Cognitive, their problem solving. Are they scattered? Are they focused? And then you can see it goes into the social domains as well. So when you think of something like that, like it's the typical iceberg analogy. When someone's dysregulated, it's
Going
when
out, let the cat out. He's gonna.
oh, no problem. Your cat needs biological regulation. But perfect example. Okay, if you're trying to sit in a meeting, or if you're trying to engage in a phone call or a teleconference, and you need to use the washroom, it's a little minor thing of biological dysregulation. You need to take care of business so that you can show up as your smartest self. So in this time of pandemic and all these hard decisions we're all making, personally and professionally, we need to try to find that place where we're making expected decisions. We're showing up like we wish we want to show up. So it's going back to meeting your basic needs. So another visual is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Is that one familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, let me click that up just in case people don't know what we're talking about. So Maslow's kind of Psych 101. A lot of us were exposed to this, high school and in university. Right now, the physiological safety thing, the first couple of weeks of the pandemic, we were all kind of in scramble mode. Let's buy a bunch of groceries. Let's buy some toilet paper. Holy crap, what's happening? When you're in this mode, you got a lot of adrenaline pumping. You can't get up here, self-actualization to your best and brightest self. Some of us are slowly starting to creep up. We're slowly starting to be like, ooh, it's important to connect with family and friends however I can. Oh, I can pivot. I can get some stuff done, even when stuff is getting thrown at me. And we're starting to kind of get back to our abilities again, but it's not happening every day because we're still living in crisis. So if we measure it by this stick where we have to show up awesome every day, we're going to be underwhelmed. We're going to be frustrated. So it's also like figuring out, okay, what are my environmental circumstances, like the world, the country, the province, the city. There's a ton of stuff that we can't control right now.
Yeah.
So you're looking at what can you control, what can't you control.
Yeah.
The circle we can control, that's where self-regulation lives. It's how we respond to the stuff we can't control. So just even hanging your hat on that. I can't control the rules right now as far as how I can run my business.
Yeah.
What can I take? What's realistic now, given how many hours in the day, what my responsibilities are, what can I actually do to get like a check in the win column at the end of the day? Because if I'm constantly setting myself up for failure, I'm not going to be regulated either. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be frustrated, right? So that's kind of the self-regulation piece. The other part that you and I have talked about before is like the basics of brain neuroanatomy, and talking about when you're self-regulated, you can access the prefrontal cortex. Mm-hmm. So this is executive functioning. One of the videos I show kids about it is it talks about it being like the air traffic controller at an airport. So there's all these wants, needs, stresses coming flying at us. In order to direct the traffic, in order to make decisions, in order to prioritize our time, we have to be calm. So this is the trick. The emotional center is right in the middle of smack dab in the middle of your brain. It's called the limbic system. There's this little sucker about the size of an almond called the amygdala. If I was to scan your brain like a functional MRI, when you were having a big upset reaction, you would light up like a Christmas tree in the middle of your brain. When you're lighting up, human behavior, you click backwards. You go into fight, flight, or freeze. You go into survival. That's not self-regulation, but it is survival. It keeps you alive, but you're reacting, right? To respond, you actually have to notice the emotion growing, like, oh, I'm starting to get upset here, I'm frustrated, I'm almost at my limit. Then we have to figure out how to get that emotion and bring it back down. So it's not ignoring it. It's not sweeping it under the carpet. It's not bottling it. It's actually, you name it to tame it. I've heard another phrase is, you see it to heal it, whatever phrase is going to stick in your brain. But if you don't actually say, holy crap, I'm overwhelmed right now. If you don't acknowledge you're overwhelmed, you're just going to have these physical responses of overwhelm, and then you're going to have the big
eruption.
Huge Yeah, huge upset reaction. So this is the trick. There's no magic bullet. For me, to self-regulate will be different for you. A lot of people have common things. I think best when I go for a walk. If I just get some fresh air and I just physically move my body, walking my dogs, I solve a lot of problems. Some people, it's actually go have a shower. It gives you quiet time right now when we're all stuck together. Some people, it's, oh man, I seriously have to turn off Netflix and actually go to bed on time tonight. And then I'll show up tomorrow and all of a sudden it'll be easier. So there's no tricks, but it's that, do I do deep breathing? Do I do yoga? Do I drink less wine and more water? Like, it's all those self-care things that we all know we should do. And we have to decide what's going to make the biggest bang for the buck so that we're actually aware of how we feel, so that we can actually notice how to get back to that feeling of center, so that we can get to the smart part of our brain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think the hardest part most people struggle with is they don't realize they're in it.
100%.
I think that catches a lot of people.
And you can't change it or cope with it if you don't see it.
Exactly.
So one thing you can think about is a body scan. So a lot of your clients are going to be having some superpowers in body awareness. So oftentimes people that have great body awareness, if they're into physical health and wellness, they've spent the time to develop coordination. They've spent the time to notice when it's sore muscle versus strained muscle. They know where the roots are in place. They've got aesthetic awareness, proprioceptive awareness, whether it be athlete or, just regular person that's into fitness. So notice your body. Where does it live? So for me, if I'm overwhelmed, I often used to think, oh no, I'm getting a sore throat. Like my throat's tight. And then I realized, it's just because I had that presentation at the school next week and I don't think I'm prepared yet. So I know my throat is a beacon for me to tell I'm just a little too stretched. I got to figure things out. When you're a kid, it's like you got a tummy ache. You're going to the washroom a lot in school, meaning you got to get out of math class 6 times, right? Because you're overwhelmed. Some people, they have trouble eating. Some people eat too much. Some people get the headache, the typical stress of the neck. Some people, they grit their teeth, so the jaw point. My friends used to make fun of me because when I'm really intense, all of a sudden my thumb disappears and I've got like these tight hands. Even I'm sitting there thinking I'm having a good time and I realize, what am I doing? Right? So we all do these weird things where our body's often tightened on us.
Okay.
So body scan is one idea, especially when you're really attuned to your body. But it's actually just stopping to notice, like, how am I feeling right now?
I think that's the key one.
Yeah, I think it's a key one because we're all smart enough after the fact to know why. Like, we can all do the ABCs, like antecedent, behavior, consequence. Consequence, I lost my bananas, right? And then I hurt a relationship I was in, right? Like my spouse is mad at me, my kids' feelings were hurt. The behavior was an overreaction, loss of self-regulation. The antecedent, we can always see the stresses when we look back. Oh man, I didn't get a good sleep. I ate like crap. I had too much on my plate. But when you're in it, that's the key. So the first thing is, scan your body. The second thing is when it does go wrong, back up the bus, right? When it does go wrong, like you've gone down the wrong path, you lost your mind, you raised your voice, you didn't show up like as your true self, like you were either disappointed in yourself or embarrassed. Stop and just notice why. You can be your best own psychoanalyst because you actually know how you were feeling about situations.
Yeah.
And then you can say, okay, where could I have pressed pause? Right? The key is pause. You can't get rid of the problems, but where do you get some space? Because the minute you get space, the emotion in that center starts to shrink, right? Like if you're boiling mad 10 out of 10, I dare you to stay there for 2 hours. If you take away whatever's bugging you, I dare you to try to maintain that intensity.
Yeah,
it won't happen, right? So the minute you give yourself time and space away from something difficult, whether it's a person or a situation, sometimes it's a matter of just, going to the bathroom, taking your time, wash your hands, a couple deep breaths. Oh, okay, I know exactly what I need to do next. Or I'm going to show up calm, because the other piece of this is it's co-regulation, especially when we're all tight with our people, right?
Yeah.
They're the people that can read us the easiest, which is quite annoying sometimes because they can see us getting upset before we know it, right? Mm-hmm. So I can see you smiling and nodding. So it's
I think we both are on that, Rand.
No, we'll stay totally right here. I love you, Aaron. Okay. So it's The co-regulation. So if you come in hot, someone else goes hotter, right? So it's basically interbrain connection. My Christmas tree is lighting up your Christmas tree.
Yeah.
We're going to have a bonfire if we don't press pause, if we don't friggin' unplug the tree, right? So the way we unplug it is we dial it back. So if you think about huge dysregulation, people get loud and they get bigger. So another key is you literally get smaller. So rather than this stance, it's maybe this,
Mm-hmm.
rather than this voice, it's, hey, I can tell you're upset. It's this voice. So think about getting smaller and quieter. It'll disarm the other person's system, right? So you're not adding fuel to the fire, you're actually dousing it. You're adding some water to their fire. And it's mirror neurons, right? So from a brain anatomy perspective, rather than mirroring your anger, I'm mirroring calm back at you. You're seeing calm, you're realizing. So that old back brain, your old caveman is realizing I'm not a saber-toothed tiger, right? I'm not here to kill you. I'm here that we might have a disagreement. Yeah. We might not agree.
It's a survival situation.
100%. Now, let me show you a visual about there's some cool guys in this field talking about upstairs brain or downstairs brain. Okay, so upstairs brain is kind of a neat visual that I think sticks with people. So I'll show you that one next. Where we got here? I think it's this one. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so upstairs brain. So this is where your eyeballs would be, right here. Your forehead would be here. So upstairs brain is that prefrontal cortex. So thinking, body control, play, empathy. So this is geared to parents of children, but you can just substitute in here like all of the different thinking skills, like reasoning and prioritizing. And then downstairs brain, fight, flight, or freeze, we can put in here. Now, it also keeps you alive. This is the autonomic nervous system. It keeps you breathing, keeps your heart pumping. So we don't want to throw this under the bus. It keeps us alive. But when we're down in the basement, this is survival. So just like when we talked about this is the basement, right? Yeah. We're just in survival. So that makes sense. Another graphic that's often used in schools, it's just a color-coded system. So green zone, happy, calm, feeling okay, focused, ready to learn. Yellow zone, you're just starting to ramp up, right? You might be frustrated or worried. It could be a positive emotion too. Like if you're at a birthday party and your kids are starting to freak out, that's a good place to be yellow. Red is that loss of control. Okay, so it can be in the angry, mad, it could be scared, it could be super crazy happy. Now, none of these colors are bad. Red zone keeps you safe if you're in a dangerous situation at times, right? If you're terrified, if there's a real threat, you're going to act to move and you're going to keep yourself safe. Yellow zone's a pretty normal place to be. We're all going to be yellow zone the first time we get to hug our friends again. We're going to be super pumped. We're going to be like absolutely excited, right? Yeah. Green zone is our self-regulation space. Blue zone, I hope you're there at bedtime. A lot of us are having trouble sleeping right now. We have to figure out how to down-regulate to get into this bored, slow, tired mode, right? So again, none of those things are bad things. They're a normal thing, but all of us do this all day. So the goal is to try to get green as often as you can.
Yeah.
But the environment's going to throw the people and the situations are going to throw you into yellow. Now, the key is when you're yellow, notice before you hit red.
And that makes sense. And that's just the ebb and flow of life and daily life and the current situation and everything.
Yeah. It's all commonsensical, right? Like it's common sense. People have just put it to graphics and models to try to help understand human behavior more. The other piece I like about this is for adults, self-regulation is something that we can that's the goal. For kids, it's always going to be co-regulation, right? It's always going to be us helping. Some adults still struggle with self-regulation depending on how their attachment was as they were growing up, depending on how healthy their relationships are, right? I'm going to show you one last visual because I think you'll like this one. Do you like pictures?
Okay. Hands down the most technical presentation we've had, period.
I'm keeping you engaged so you don't just have to stare at me. Okay, so this piece is from Dr. Dan Siegel is a guy that does a ton of work on self-regulation. He's got this thing called the Wheel of Awareness. Basically, he's put meditation into a scientific box, like pure and simple. He's basically said, be present, be in the here and now. But what I like about this visual is I tell kids, at adults, think about when you're on the highway and that big semi truck goes past you and the outside of the wheel is just a humming, like it's just a blur, but that inside hub is just quiet, right? So think about that when I show you this. This one, so this wheel of awareness, so humming around the outside is all the stuff, like all of our senses, what we're experiencing in the world. All this stuff is inundating us, right? Interior of the body, it's like it's that, you know, awareness of self inside, like, am I hungry, thirsty, do I need a washroom break, is my heart racing? We've got all these mental activities, thinking, problem solving, trying to figure out life, and then we've got the interconnectedness, trying to figure out other humans. So all this is the stuff that we're managing constantly. Now his take on it is, think of it as a spoke. So you go out here, boom, I'm thinking about talking to Barrett today. Oh yeah, maybe I should, you know, like open up those pictures. They might be helpful. Okay, I'm doing some stuff now. Bring it back. Get calm and clear. What's the point of this whole thing, right? Come out here, think a bit more, bring it back. So in here would be the green zone. You have clarity, you have peace, you have calm. This is where I can be a better listener. I'm more receptive. I'm self-regulated. But I can't always control what's going on the rim, right? I can't always control, for example, if you're in an environment that's loud, that's busy, that's overwhelming, the senses are kind of going off the rails. So you got to find a way to get back to center. So again, it's not an answer, but I like the analogy of it, that you can't stop the spinning, but you can always come back to home base. And in that home base, how do you find that? So is it a sippy cup with some tea? Is it a salt rock lamp to have a real nice, like, quieter lights, not glowing, you know, harsh fluorescence? Like, how can you make your environment make you feel more peaceful so you don't always have to think your way there? What kind of clothing are you wearing to feel calm and connected? What kind of exercise do you need today? Do you need cardio and just need to get moving and do you need repetitive motion? Do you need calm breathing and yoga? Do you need to just lift some heavy stuff to have a little break from all the thinking? Anyhow, I hope that helps. It helps me when I'm feeling overwhelmed.
It's really interesting because you say you work with a lot of kids, but you also help coach parents, and all the stuff we're talking about is the stuff that you and I have talked about just for regular people like me and you and all the other clients that train other people that I work with. So the skills, they don't change from age group to special needs. It's just, this is kind of where we all have to get to. There's just different avenues to get there for individuals.
100%. And the reason I like using the brain, so I'll even just draw a picture of a brain, draw a little heart in the middle for kids, and then I show a picture of like a bear, an eagle, and a deer for fight, flight, or freeze. So we'll use tons of visuals and stuff. The parents, though, they're like, oh yeah, or oh, that's me, right? There's always that recognition. And sometimes in occupational therapy, there's a bit of an avenue for sensory stuff. So compared to the other health professionals, we tend to highlight a bit more how the senses are impacted. For example, a lot of kids I see on the autism spectrum, they're highly sensitive compared to other people. It's like they're just getting through so much more information than the rest of us are. So you get those lenses on and you're like, okay, is the overwhelm you're feeling, is the dysregulation a result of the environment you're in? Is it the smells? Is it the sights? Is it the taste of the food? Is it, you know, like, it's all the senses. A lot of it's touch, which is a huge one right now during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us really depend on touch, right?
Yeah.
And depending on if you're living alone right now, you know, I've listened to some podcasts and watched some stuff lately on, you know, of course, we're all aware of the power of touch and how it can be connecting and healing, how it can be calming. So I'll be a nerdy scientist again on you because I hate to try to sell sensory because it sounds a little voodoo, and I like science-based stuff, but I also know it works. So I teach the parents and the kids about, you know, the layers of your skin. So it's like having an onion, lots of different layers. The lowest layer is called the basal epidermis. So it's like the basement level of the skin.
Yeah.
And in there's Merkel cells, or I just call them magic cells for the kids. So there's Merkel cells. When you have deep pressure, when you have really big deep pressure squeezes, so it's that bear hug, it's that heavy weighted blanket, it's digging your elbows into your knees as you're sitting there calming yourself down. It's wringing your hands. It's stuff we naturally do to provide deep pressure to ourselves without even knowing it. Merkel cells release serotonin. So serotonin is a neurotransmitter that helps with self-regulation. It helps with calm. It's like feel-good juice, right? So just like we get that hit of dopamine after a good workout,
Yeah.
with that kind of joyful energy, and just, it's almost like it just shakes the cobwebs out, or maybe a little grayness in our brain, a little sadness. Serotonin, if things are feeling overwhelming, it's like a nice balm. Like it's just a calming feeling to us. So thinking about how the senses help, because you and I tend to go cerebral. We're like, okay, what are the strategies? How can we figure this out?
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have to, again, back up the bus. You can't always outthink the problems. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're dysregulated, because all of us, like one day I think I'm nailing it. I'm like, oh, I found my new rhythm. And then the next day, oh, right? Like it's
So
banana.
true in this day and age right now.
Totally. So sometimes a best laid plans, I thought I was showing up well as a mom. My kids having an off day, one of the three are bound to have some bumps in the road each day, and then put me in the mix, and we've got four of us bouncing off each other. Sometimes it goes back to that quiet, big hug, dim lighting, calm space, and you find the physical calm. And with you, with your new little newborn, what
Yeah.
do you naturally do to someone that can't communicate with words yet? You hold tight,
Yeah.
you rock, right? We basically create a womb-like environment, right? And we attend to the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy. We go through the physiological, like, is she hungry? Does she need a diaper change? Does she need a nap? Does she just need to be held? So sometimes we overcomplicate it. Like, we're not going to check our own diapers at this point, but do we need a walk? Do we need a hug? Do we need a glass of water? Like, what are my basic needs right now, before I go all fancy? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And it really does explain, like, I've known about a Maslow hierarchy of needs for a while. And
Yeah,
it's really funny because you can see certain people that never get to that base level.
100%.
And a lot of times as a coach, my goal is to get them to that base level and just trying to bring them to another level, just one level up and one level up. And it's such, and for each person, it's individual. So you have no idea exactly what the trigger is, I guess you could say, to get them to the next level and kind of bring them out of that moment where it's like, oh
Yes.
yeah, I'm being an idiot right now,
Yeah.
and get them to the next tier so they can get back to where they need to be successful at what they want to accomplish.
Yes, 100%. When you speak about goal setting, and when you speak about being specific and realistic, I really loved your talk the other day you gave on fear-based things, where like it's almost like you don't want to set your goal because you're scared before you start of not being able to accomplish it.
Yeah.
Well, when I get that feeling of like fear-based, like, oh, I'd really like to do that, but oh, I don't know if I can, I'm backbraining it, right? It's a fear-based response. It's like that quote, like, what would you do if you were guaranteed to succeed? Like, that's the front base,
Yeah.
like what would you do if you could be in that front brain, and you could, like, there's no problem you can't solve. If you don't know it, you've got friends to ask. You can ask experts. You can figure it out, right? If we could live all the way there, that's the other part that this brings in from the theories, is the growth mindset. So I like some of the stuff I talk to parents and teachers about, and kids, is growth mindset. So it's the opposite of a fixed mindset. So the fixed mindset is I can't do it. The growth mindset is I can't do it yet. I can't do it yet. But what do I need to do it? Like, now I can't do it. What about tomorrow? What about the next week? What would I need in order to get there? But you can't be forward thinking if you're down in the basement, if you're in fear based, and if you're just looking after basic needs. And we're all in a different situation despite being in the same global pandemic. So one week you might be in the basement again. There might be another crisis. Somebody might get sick in your family. You might have a change of your employment all of a sudden. You have to recognize too when you are in the basement, and then operate from that perspective.
Yeah.
But when you're out of the basement, when you realize that you've got some sense of safety, you're going to be okay. If you're not okay, you know where to get help. Then you're at the point where you can start growth mindset again, right? So it's not an all or nothing. Sometimes, you can't all wake up in sunshine and rainbows, but if your basic needs are met, and a lot of this is not just physical safety, but mental, right? Mental safety, emotional safety. So like in this current situation, I do worry as a mom, and having had a partner once, it's that safety in relationships right now. Like we all owe it to ourselves and to each other to keep each other safe. And if you're self-regulated, you're going to be kind and you're going to be loving and you're going to show up as the best version of yourself. If you're in the basement and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not self-regulated, you're going to make choices that can be scary for other people, that can be surprising, unexpected, right? So the self-regulation is a huge part of safety with our whole society right now.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's like you said, none of this is new, really. It's just kind of putting it together, and it's that whole pausing and noticing.
Yeah,
where am I at?
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and I think it was the Spartan Up podcast, and the woman's name was Kristen Ulmer, and she used to be I believe she was kind of like an adrenaline junkie, but she got paid to do like heli-skiing and like deep backwoods mountain skiing and stuff like that. And she was talking about fear, and she wrote a book, and I'm actually probably going to order it. It's called The Art of Fear.
Okay.
But she actually has done a lot of research on fear, both researched it and then lived it, because, you know, when you do backwoods skiing and you're trapped in avalanche and stuff like that. But to kind of paraphrase a concept she's come up with, she said something like, fear is neither positive or negative. That feeling you get in your gut from like fear is not necessarily negative. It's the anticipation of what's about to happen next, and how you perceive essentially the situation is the positive or negative response that you get from fear.
Yes. So think
really
about like
podcast.
Yes, no, that sounds awesome, because I agree. Like fear is not always negative. I would the way my brain frames it is, especially when you talk about forward thinking. So whenever you're anticipating something and you're not there yet, 100 million things could happen because you're not there yet. So when I work with kids and parents, that's labeled as anxiety. So when fear or a difficult situation puts you in a tailspin where it's like a worried response, you have anxiety because you're trying to figure it out, and right now we don't know what's happening next.
Yeah.
So naturally we're all put in a tailspin towards anxiety. Now if you take that same fear and you put the positive switch on it, could be opportunity, could be creativity, it could be what am I going to learn, this is a new one. It could be adrenaline in a positive way, because it's that whole idea of exactly like stress, right? Stress is not positive or negative. If I have no stress, I have no reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Bingo.
There's no motivation. So same with fear. A little bit of fear is like, how do I stretch myself? Like, how can I grow and learn today? How can I bounce, right? Yeah. Like the ball's been dropped. How am I going to bounce? Yeah, no, I love that idea of it, because a lot of the mental health support that I do is related a lot towards anxiety, and a lot of the kids I have on my caseload are actually in the gifted range, and they come to me, they're gifted intellectually, but it often brings with it increased anxiety, because if you're thinking deeply about everything, you're thinking about every permutation that could possibly occur in every situation. Yeah, you're overwhelmed, right? So it's like that wheel. The wheel is just going so fast that you can't find that quiet center. Yeah. So the tricky part is it's coming back to the here and now. What do I have control over right now? Yeah, we've got a plan for some options. That's normal human survival behavior, right? If A happens, I'll do B. If C happens, I'll do D. But it's that realizing that if you're living in the future always, you're always going to be unsettled because it's not here yet. If you're not there yet, your mind can spin, right? So the only thing we know is right now.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. I really like that one.
Yeah.
That's almost a perfect way to end this first one, because we're definitely doing another one. No question. If you want to, because this is awesome. It really, I think this is going to be I think it's going to put to forefront a lot of stuff that I've talked about with my clientele, and we've talked about for years. But I think hearing a different voice, hearing a different way, and then hearing the science behind it versus me just babble on my base level knowledge, I think this is going to be really helpful to a lot of people.
Oh, don't ever say you're a babbler. You share some good wisdom. You share some good wisdom, my friend.
I read a lot of books.
Yeah, no, but you think a lot, right? And it's about reading, and it's about applying it to your own experience. That's where the learning happens.
Yeah.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It was nice to see you and catch up.
Yeah, and if someone wants to get a hold of you, ask some questions, are you cool if you get like an email address?
Oh, absolutely. My email is jillforeman@bloomot.com. So it's JILL Foreman at Bloom, which is BLOOMOT.com, or my website is bloomot.com. So yeah, if you have any questions, if you need any support, let me know.
Perfect. All right, thanks, Jill. I'll close it off and then stick around for a quick second.
Okay, thank you.
See ya. And guys, that's another segment. We got more coming your way. Stay tuned.